Well, timing is everything here in showbiz, and the traditional kissing of the bricks celebration is happening just below me here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Verizion 200 at the Brickyard has just concluded, and spoiler alert, Tyler Reddick was the winner, but a lot of controversy today, and certainly a controversial finish in which it looked like Ross Chastain was going to come out of absolutely nowhere and win this race. So, and it's interesting that it is a controversy, and I understand why, because NASCAR has a precedent of have at it, boys, right? And I think a lot of people expect that and expect wild, crazy things. And if you give them an excuse to be wild and crazy, then, have at it, so to speak. But I felt like anybody with eyes could see that Ross Chastain gained, in my opinion, and obviously the opinion of the NASCAR officials, an unfair advantage by coming through the runoff area down there, which is an area that has been designed. This is an FIA Grade 1 course, so they put areas in runoff areas where you can safely return to the racetrack. Well, what happened with Ross Chastain is on one of those crazy freaking restarts where you have 4 or 5 wide going down into turn 1 here on the road course. He didn't attempt to go into the corner, and that ultimately is what drew the penalty, according to NASCAR. Drove straight down the racetrack through that access road and came out ahead of Tyler Reddick. Now, Tyler Reddick, ultimately being the car and driver that was so dominant in today's race, it didn't matter quite so much that Ross Chastain got into that lead. But if you think about it, if Ross hangs on, you have 2 potentially races in a row in which the driver who crossed the line first doesn't actually win the race. And that would have been a very bad situation for NASCAR. And I got to say as well, I said this about Chicago, and that's kind of what is going on at the IMS road course, is that everyone complains about this race and also it being on the road course, and then everyone gets excited when it's a wreck fest and crazy absolute drama. 5-6 wide on restarts. I thought this race was a lot better than last year's race, just start to finish. I thought it was fun. I thought it seemed like driver skill was a little bit more of a factor because there were so many drivers, experienced drivers, particularly where I was standing to watch the race in turn 1, that were out braking themselves, locking up the brakes, getting into other cars, spinning out. It was a shame because it took out a lot of good cars that ultimately, should have probably been there at the end. Kyle Larson's the great example of that. Eric Almirola missed his braking point by a country mile and ran into Kyle Larson, ultimately damaging Kyle Larson's suspension, and I believe that eventually led to the brake failure, which also took Ty Dillon out of this race. And there's a couple things that I've got to say about that. Number one, I am so thankful because I saw that impact live and in person, and I'll tell you, Kyle Larson was carrying a tremendous amount of speed when he hit Ty Dillon. I'm so happy and pleased that both Ty and Kyle got out of that accident A-OK, or at least walked out of it. But I have to think, and just kind of thinking about, because one of the big talking points in NASCAR recently has been that the next-gen cars, the impacts have been so severe. I would be very interested to hear the data, especially on the Ty Dillon car, essentially being stationary, theory of relativity and all, compared to Kyle Larson's car, which may have been going as fast as 150 miles an hour when he made contact, going in a completely opposite direction than Ty Dillon. It was a brutal-looking hit. You could see the damage to the Petty GMS car and as well Kyle Larson's car. I mean, massive damage to those Dallara chassis. So I'm really glad to see both of them get out of that. And that was really kind of the second real moment of the race. But I will say, I recorded a funny moment, and before I go over the results of this race, one of the camper tents down into turn 1 actually got onto the racetrack during one of the stage breaks, and I actually was able to record it. And at the moment, it's got about 15,000 views on Twitter, but YouTube is where I actually put bread on the table, so I figure I'd show you guys too.
Look out! We got one! We got a loose one! Look out! Oh, Cody Ware, no! Ah! Look out! We gotta run away! We gotta run away! Ah! Go get him, AMR safety team! Go get him! Run it over! Run it over!
Wow. That's why I love coming out to these races and why I think it's valuable to have people, I guess, like me coming out to these races because, sometimes you never know what you're going to catch, especially when you go out there and watch the race. And I think, I love coming to these, even NASCAR. I would come to so many more NASCAR races. It's great to go out there and experience it because I think it makes for better content when you're able to kind of describe what you have seen. And, just like my IndyCar and IMSA coverage, let's look at the finishing order for the Verizion 200 here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, or at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And it was Tyler Reddick winning. He was the best car all day. I think it was a well-deserved win. And very interesting post-race comments from Richard Childress about Tyler Reddick, and in fact comparing it directly to the amicable split he had with Kevin Harvick at the end of his time. Austin Cindric was in second place here in the Boss's Town for Team Penske, the number 2 car. Harrison Burton, that's a Penske-affiliated car as well, in third. Todd Gilliland, you know what? The front row cars looked really, really good today, and it's great to see that they got a result. It's great to see that Gilliland got a result. He's been struggling throughout this NASCAR season. And Bubba Wallace, a top 5. Interesting strategy call. Both he and the 20 car stayed out towards the beginning of the third stage, I believe, and it ended up paying off for Bubba Wallace. That track position got him a top 5 on a road course. Joey Logano in 6th had quite a day. He actually caught on fire after the race. A.J. Allmendinger probably felt like he was on fire. He collapsed after the race and has gone to the infield care center after having a cool suit failure. Yesterday's winner in the Xfinity Series. Michael McDowell, again, Front Row Motorsports, great result. Cole Custer looked like he was racing for a job. He actually spun out at one point, but finished in the top 10. Chris Buescher rounds out that top 10. A beautiful car, and he also caught on fire. Kyle Busch, a man under fire. Not really sure exactly where he's going to land next year. Stage 2 winner Christopher Bell in 12th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was the highest, best mover in the race in the Go-Gurt car. Denny Hamlin was my pick to win, and it doesn't look like a very good pick. Eric Jones, that Jones boy spun out and somehow finished in the top 20. Ty Gibbs in his debut at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the Cup Series, a middling 17th. Corey LaJoie for Spire Motorsports was up in the top at some points. Haley was in the pits and somehow, no, that wasn't Haley, it was the 16 car, sorry, the other Kaulig car. So good, that was the best result for Kaulig. Brad Keselowski spun once every 20 laps. Go back and look at it. He really did. Martin Truex Jr. was involved in one of the big wrecks. Josh Bilicki was, Josh Bilicki. Chase Briscoe spun out quite a bit. Cody Ware avoided that 10, as you saw. Josh Williams seemed to be off of the pace just completely the entire day. Ryan Blaney was crashed right at the end. Ross Chastain was penalized for cutting the course. Daniel Suarez had to make a late pit stop. Joey Hand was treated like a pinball out there by the NASCAR regulars. Austin Dillon ended up in the gravel trap. William Byron out of the race. Alex Bowman out of the race. Kevin Harvick out of the race. Ty Dillon out of the race. Kyle Larson and Daniel Kvyat finishes last in his NASCAR Cup Series debut. So the post-race festivities continue here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Tyler Reddick is a winner in the NASCAR Cup Series here at Indianapolis. And, I think the road course will probably stay at least for one more year. Doug Bowles had a very interesting comment, the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, during the IMSA press conference, in which it was kind of talked about what will the IMS schedule look like in the future. And he said, short term, this race will stay on the road course. Keyword short term, which I think a lot of people missed. I do believe the Oval will be involved at some point. Exactly what and how, I'm not sure. But I do believe that a Oval return will be in the cards at some point. My suggestion is, frankly, do the Brickyard 400 and just make this a total Cup weekend. Get Xfinity to IRP and take IndyCar to Milwaukee. Do 2 races. You do this 200-mile road course race on Saturday, and you do a 200-mile sprint race on the Oval on Sunday. And you do 2 different winners. They're both full points paying races, but then you have an overall champion, the highest averaging finish of both races, and you call him the Brickyard 400 champion. And oh, by the way, I would set it so that you qualify for the road course race, and where you finish in the road course race determines your starting position on the Oval. So if anyone's listening, that's my suggestion for the NASCAR weekend going forward. But you know what? I'll put it this way. I don't know how the TV product was, because it seemed like some people were upset with it. But I went down there in turn one, hung out with some of my buddies, and really just in general made some new buddies. That's always how it goes when you watch racing with race fans. And, it's fun when you're on the mound and you're just like, oh, they're wrecking, or oh my God, there goes the freaking, canopy. And so even though probably there was about 20, 30,000 people here today, again, it's all gravy for IMS because NBC pays for this race. But I have to think that the allure of the oval would probably get more people out here. But, I would also say that coming into the infield for this road course race, I've done it the last 2 years. It's pretty fun, it has to be said. It's a fun race to watch as long as you're kind of turning your brain off and saying, oh, that yellow's stupid, and Ross Chastain cut the course and he's going to ruin the finish for the guy who dominated the race. You almost have to treat NASCAR as a different form of auto racing, or even not even auto racing, like a weird mismatch between the National Football League and whatever NASCAR used to be. It is a very, very different product, very, very entertainment based. I mean, I said that too. Yesterday was the fan bases are so different. I mean, there wasn't I hardly recognized any faces that were here yesterday that are here today. And, it's a totally different product that appeals to a totally different crowd. And it feels nothing like the Indy 500. I think at points the Brickyard on the oval probably felt like the Indy 500. I don't know. I never went to a prime Brickyard. My first Brickyard was 2014, and that was already well into the decline of the Brickyard 400. It was cool to see Jeff Gordon win my first NASCAR race, but at this, that I went to in person. But this feels like an SRX race more than like a crown jewel event, which isn't necessarily a criticism, but I think that's kind of how I feel about it. It was definitely more entertaining than the IndyCar race. Entertaining, but I don't know. I'm going to continue to put that suggestion: Brickyard 400, 200 on the road course, 200 on the oval. That would be what I would do. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be in Nashville next week. I've learned a bunch of stuff this week, believe it or not, about the NASCAR situation with all the silly season stuff, as well as IndyCar. So got plenty of content still to come. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video.